business that grew my net worth, and we was just always focused on growth. So it was very much an exit mindset. One of, I'm going to exit these, I happen to run a real estate private equity firm. So we buy, large multifamily projects. We buy a bunch of other types of real estate investments. But in that mindset, everything was always about this exit. Okay, I'm making money now, but in the future, 80% of the profit is going to come and I'm going to have to wait for that. And I'm willing to be patient and wait because I see what I'm building. And it was always about building more and more. But I grew up, with a challenging childhood of finances and struggles around money. And so I was always like, okay, I just need to create this. But it was so easy to get distracted, focused on that end exit number versus, hey, what am I getting paid today? And that's really where Name Your Number was born out of, was realizing it for myself and then talking with a lot of my clients and realizing so many other people were in the same boat. So what I'm curious for you is, what are you seeing that your clients are now doing differently as a result of these lessons that they learned in the last few years around, all of the experiences that just happened?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think the being more aware, especially like you said about real estate, I think being more aware of how real estate plays in to their business, definitely more of an interest in buying a building, buying a piece of property just to have something that is yours versus the ones where before it might have just been like a 10-year lease. That's great. Like, I think there's definitely more of a awareness of the difference between a lease versus a buy. And I think also looking at a lot seem to be really more aware of exit, right? Because you knew in 2020, well, I can't sell, like there's no chance. And I think being more aware of planning an exit strategy versus, just assuming it's going to happen. So I think those are the two big things, but by far it's real estate is, seems to be something that everybody seems to be paying, more attention to.
Well, especially when you own a restaurant, you've got that really amazing spot and you're like, hey, I can go and get some debt that I can put down on this property. And I know I can make the payments. And, over time, I'm going to see that appreciation. It definitely doesn't lead towards passive income, right? Because the business is paying for that business's lease, but it is absolutely something that's going to end up building more of that wealth. Again, very much an exit focused type of view. For you personally, what role has passive income played in your own world? Or are you fully focused, build the business, build the active income stream, one focus until some certain point? Talk to me through how you're thinking about that personally, from the CPA standpoint, the financial standpoint, and then also kind of that vision standpoint about how it plays a role.
Yeah. So I think, I've always been aware of the importance of passive income. I joke with, friends and peers and everything that, as a CPA, you see what works in retirement, what doesn't, because, a lot of your clients are older. So it's interesting to, and have the opportunity, which is why I love what I do, is that you can literally like sit down with someone who's, 75 or 80 and see, right? Do they have 4 investment properties? Do they have rental income? And you can see very quickly what works and what doesn't. And I think, someone has told me, I think it's great advice that for the entrepreneur, setting up some sort of real estate, rental property, I mean, that really is your retirement plan, right? Because you're not going to get a pension as a self-employed individual for the most part, unless you set one up yourself. But, if you have this rental property that is maybe even break even now, when you retire, that's a huge benefit. And I think when you look backwards as a CPA, you really get a lot of insight. So for me, I've always been a lot more aware of like, hey, I really want to follow some of what this couple's done because they seem to have a good life and they're off on a cruise, and so you just kind of learn a lot from that. And I think it is very much, being aware of what's changed in retirement, right? The people who are even on pensions now versus 20 years ago, it's just a different world. And so being aware of that now is really important so that you can still set yourself up for success.
Yeah, it's super important. And it's amazing for all of us to acknowledge, hey, I know about this thing. I know that it's beneficial, but I'm not doing it. And then it's like, okay, well, why am I not doing it? What I found is oftentimes it's because, well, I don't know exactly which ones to choose, or I don't really have a plan built around this, and I'm not connected to a bigger vision that will drive me out of my comfort zone to go and learn these things. So I'm curious for you personally, you're running a successful business, you're working with folks in the hospitality industry. What is your vision of the life that you're creating, both through your business and eventually the other strategies you might add on top of that? Like, what is it that you're ultimately working towards, and like, what's beautiful about that life?
Yeah. So I think for me, again, taking the lessons of COVID, it was a crazy few years. I do want to always continue to learn. And really, I try to learn a lot from my individual clients. So for me, definitely want to learn more about passive income and real estate. I've tried to read some books. It's on the 2023 wish list, because I do think, it's important to kind of explore that. And yeah, I mean, for me, I just want to keep, learning about other areas outside of CPA and entrepreneurship.
Well, awesome. Well, I'm glad we connected. We can definitely talk more about what some of those strategies look like. And just for all the listeners, it's really important to understand the difference here, right? When we are looking at money, we're looking at making money, we're looking at managing money, and we're looking at how to multiply money. A lot of us are earning money in our career, our business. That's our main focus. It's very active. We're running an active business or working in an active job. And that's really what, society's taught us. Hey, that's how we get by. And then we put money into a retirement account, and at some future date, we finally hit that goal and we're there. But what's really powerful is understanding, hey, well, I've got my active income. This is what I'm earning. This is what my business is doing. Anything that you've got to manage is active. And so, contrary to many people's understanding, if you go out and buy a rental property, or you buy an Airbnb, or you buy a commercial building, and you're the active manager, operator, and decision maker, you've got another active income stream. Now, some of those might be semi-passive, but if you've got to make the decisions, then you're really just creating another active stream. And that's what really turns a lot of people off from hitting the button and going towards creating that income, is because they often believe that's really the only path. Maybe they can invest with their financial advisor, and that's passive because somebody else is doing it. But there's also a whole nother path, investing in a private equity, whether that be business, or in the case that we talk a lot about, real estate and energy and notes and things like that, that once you learn some of these skills, you only have to invest that time up front to vet that opportunity. And when you pair that with a passive investment plan where you've already made a bunch of decisions in advance, then it's much easier to be able to go through this process. And, I didn't mention this at the beginning, but my mom owns a bar in Western Wisconsin. And fortunately for them, COVID only existed for a few weeks in Wisconsin before everything was back open, because the Tavern League has so much power. They were able to literally open the state back up. Yes. But seeing from her experience, like, she makes great cash in the business and she runs that bar and it's her whole life, but she can't really pull herself out of it. It would be very difficult for her to be able to do that just because of the size of the bar and just the way she runs and manages it. So in her eyes, it's an exit of the business, and she's put some money into some land and some other things like that. And she's now starting to get down that path towards, pulling some more money off the table and putting it into things that actually pay passively. But for a lot of business owners, we just focus doing all the work, doing what we know how to do, doing what our identity says and who we are. And we just keep going down that path. So what advice would you give to your clients if they were listening to this about what they need to start thinking about now from that money that they're earning, so they can start putting some of it away towards something that'll get them to that future vision that they were working towards in the first place?
Yeah, I mean, I really think it's an unwavering sense of your worth. If that sounds like, I think it's really looking at the value of your time, because I think a lot of times as business owners, the starting point to not having some of this passive income or retirement or whatever it is that you're not paying yourself enough, right? So you're like sacrificing today for the future and saying, well, my business can only afford to pay me X amount of dollars. Well, I think we need to change that mindset. And I think that is such a lesson of the last 3 years, that really it should be the starting point of, if I were hiring someone with my skill set off the street, what would I have to pay them? And I think we have to be unwavering in that, okay, if it's 50,000 more than you're paying yourself, 100,000, whatever that is, then we need to make the business work with that number. And that, I think, is where entrepreneurs go wrong, because then they beat themselves up like, oh, I should have saved for retirement. Well, how? Like, you didn't pay yourself any money. So it's not like you were like blowing it, because most of the time, I mean, I know you hear the stories of it being different, but most of the time, it's not like you're doing crazy things and just being irresponsible. Most of it is the starting point of not paying yourself that true salary. Because if you're, running 3 locations or whatever it is, like, go on Indeed and see what that would cost you, because I guarantee it's a big number, and that is what's missing. And you could say all day long, well, my business just can't afford it, or my business, you're literally leaving money on the table. And I have done this exercise, I did it this morning. And I mean, the number that's getting left on the table is huge. And if you had that amount of money, you would be doing all of these other things, because you're a smart person. So that's where I think we get lost, is like, we start with this, okay, maybe I could save $500. No, like, start with what you're worth and what your business should be paying you. Make it work in that business, find a way, and then you can set yourself up for the future.
It's so important. All you business owners listening, you need to underline this. And all of you that aren't business owners or going down the same path from passive investing standpoint, it applies the same. The lesson is, you need to have really great expert advisors on your team. You need a great CPA like Anne, who can support you in challenging you to ask those questions to make sure that you're investing in the right things or you're running your business well. Because a lot of us as business owners, we get sold in this idea that an exit's going to come. And for a lot of people, they have great exits. I have many friends and many clients who've made tens or hundreds of millions of dollars as a result of an exit. But often those people are also running that business like it's a business. And sometimes when we're running the business and we're sacrificing our income in order to create something, we're not running it like a business. Because if we got hit by a bus and we're in the hospital for a year, the business doesn't keep running without us when we're in that small business operator mode. And so it's so critical to make sure you do have enough cash to be able to hire somebody else if you were to step out. Maybe it's not your vision. Maybe you want to work in your business. For me, I'm on a mission to help 1 million people become financially free. And I love what I do. I could stop working today, but I would never want to. I don't ever see that as part of my life, but many people do. And so it's critical. And talk to us a little bit about some of the stuff that you do with your clients. Now, I know you work specifically with folks in the hospitality industry, but anybody listening should be thinking about their balance sheet and their personal P&L to be thinking through, hey, how do I have a good understanding of my finances and financials?
No, I think you're 100% right. I think
Thank you for listening to the Investor Mindset Podcast. If you like what you heard, make sure to rate, review, subscribe, and share it with a friend. Head over to theinvestormindset.com to join the Insider Club, where we share tools and strategies from the top investors and entrepreneurs on how to take it to the next level.